Do 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 do. Only two customers of mine actually tipped tonight. Oh, do it's a frickin' Saturday, people. What's wrong with you? And why you ordering McDonald's? Why is it that the people from this frickin' apartment complex all seem to not tip? Yeah. It's Comics and Shots, a completely improvised semi-comedic musing by Howard Stern's Mick the Nerd, aka YouTube and TikTok's Mick the Man, aka Mick the Maverick, aka... Today's subject, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the animated series from 1987 to blah blah blah. What the hell happened there? Like... Anyone who's read the Mirage comics knows they're a lot more violent than the animated series that, was inspired by it. It's basically Playmates came up to Evan Eastman and Peter Laird, dumped, a bunch of money on their laps. It's like, hey, can we make a show based on this? Let's make a show about it, baby. And they said, yeah, sure, we won't regret this at all. Yeah. Peter Laird would definitely regret this, especially considering the silly cartoon version of the Turtles that ended up overshadowing the comics to the nth degree, to the point where it's like people see that as the definitive version of the Turtles rather than the original Mirage comics. Ran it for 50 issues, ending with the City at War arc. Very good. I'm not sure if I've read that. I think I have. I've definitely seen the animated version of it. Yeah. I read a lot of the Mirage comics, but yeah. And here's the weird thing about the 87 version. It was a really wild adaptation from the source material. Not as wild as Swamp Thing, the animated series, but wild, but... Some of the changes made sense. Some. Not all. Definitely not Baxter Stockman being turned white. Why did they think that was okay? Ugh. Especially with all the shit that happens to Baxter in the comics. Ugh. Ugh. Of course, if I'm being real, in the comics, Baxter Stockman was the weirdest villain. He was hired to, make rat catchers for the city of New York and instead decided to be a terrorist for some reason. Okay, I mean, you would have made millions with mouse catching technology, but sure. Yeah. But one thing they definitely did right was give them goddamn different colored headbands, because, dear God, it got so confusing in the original Mirage comics. In the early books, they didn't have, that much in terms of signifiers of who they were and how they looked. They were all drawn the same. They had, the same headbands. And their weapons would change times, too. Raphael didn't always have the size. Sometimes he'd have, the cudgels. What are those things called? It's like a wooden stick. You hold on to it. Just a cudgel. I forget what it's... Tonfa. Tonfa. Yeah, he'd have tonfa. And it's yeah. And, the later series would end up doing that, adapting with that as well. The 2003 series would shade the turtles' skin color slightly different, as well as their different headbands. 2012 series, of course, changed their physical designs drastically to differentiate themselves, and that pattern itself has continued to this day. And as much as, I somewhat agree with Peter Laird about that the 87 show kind of overshadowed the Mirage comics, and they made it way too silly. Let's not pretend that the Mirage books were perfect either. They were great, but they were not perfect. The designs of the characters were very inconsistent. The human characters, at least. Things would just happen, admittedly. It's just a bunch of stuff. And despite the fact that they say that Pete Eastman and Laird say, yeah, the Shredder wasn't that important in terms of a villain, he's their best villain. He's the best villain that they've ever made, and they probably shouldn't have killed him off way too soon due to how cool he was. Yeah. It's like, as much as people complain, as much as hardcore Mirage Comics fans complain about the cartoon, let's be real here. That series is the reason why Shredder comes back in the freaking books. You know, with weird zombie stuff, and it becomes a mutant shark man. It's just great. Yeah. So basically, TMNT 1987. One of the weirdest comic book adaptations of all time, but not the worst. It's kind of a weird hologram. At least not. Well, the vacation in Europe season was pointless, so most of it was not the worst. But dear God, that vacation in Europe season went on forever. Ugh. Ugh. I said I turned Metalhead into a vacuum cleaner, and that pissed me off. Ugh. With that, like, comment, and subscribe. Donate if you're feeling nice. Share it with a bear. And always remember, brave through the blood elk, fear the stabopotamus, and death to Kronos. Ooh, ha, ha. Tomorrow I'm going to read more of Dracula. Will people watch more of it? I don't know, but I'm going to do it because I like doing it. Yeah. Have a night, folks.